I've known Micky Zany for, say, 23 years, and as soon as I joined the cruise ships, and possibly on the cabaret circuit too, working pontins in my very early days as a performer, I would see his 10 by 8 up on the wall with all the others. Then his name would crop up in conversation when I joined the cruise industry. Have you seen Micky Zany work? Do you know Micky Zany? So I really wanted to meet Micky. In 2002, the Black Watch Fred Olsen sails into Gibraltar, and I remember meeting Micky for the first time. And that night we started laughing for 12 weeks non-stop. 18 years have passed and we still talk about that cruise season. It's the best summer on a cruise I've ever had. We also hung out a lot with John Lygate, a great mate of ours, a brilliant pianist. He was brilliant because when he wasn't on stage and we weren't on stage, our social lives were on board. We popped into Barcelona for a beer, Hard Rock Cafe for lunch, in Iceland. And then there was a pub crawl in Germany and polar bears in Spitsbergen, and the memories go on from Fred Olsen. And for me, 1999 to 2002 are the best ever made at sea. And Micky Zany's been there ever since. We've worked on each other's shows, we've stayed in touch. Micky was one of my 5 friends on my Eggheads team, Steve's Dummies, back in 2014. That was a brilliant 24 hours in Glasgow. We actually had our shared theatre show postponed on Chroma Pier in April 2020, but we're rebooked again for April 21. I remember talking to Micky about gigs, and once he said to me about 8 years ago, "Don't take everything you're offered, Steve. Sometimes make yourself unavailable," and I've not worked since. In this edition of Eyes and Teeth, we talk about Micky's career from his double act in Jersey with Shane Ritchie to his golf club days, theatre memories, television, working with his heroes. Hear about his new comedy lecture and his biography, Taking the Mickey. Enjoy hearing the stories of Micky Zany. Micky Zany here. He can work on a cruise ship, a golf club, a corporate gig, comedy club, a magistrate's court. Wherever there is need for laughter, Micky Zany will bring it. Micky, welcome to the show. Micky, Micky Loof. Yeah.
League of Gentlemen. Do you remember League of Gentlemen? I loved it.
Yeah, that's banned. Can't talk about that now. So.
Oh, God, everything's banned. You're playing a band at the moment,
Yeah. No, all bands are banned.
The sad news today about Oceana.
Oh, isn't it horrible? All the memories we've got on that ship, particularly that one. It's sad, isn't it?
I started on there 20 years ago on Oceana. I can always remember because on 20 years ago, I did the first, as a 2-week cruise. I was with Gary Lavini, Richard and Haley, Double Act, Magic and...
Griffin, yeah.
And Connolly. And I was put on the first night on Oceana, the first night 2 shows, and the second night 2 shows. And on a 2-week cruise, they couldn't believe it.
How many?
In them days, I think Anthony Radford wanted to put comedy up front, but it didn't last long, Steve.
No, it didn't. Well, those three gigs, I done that on the Ventura, on the very second week of the Ventura. I went on, I done 3 45 minutes in one night. And
yeah, so did I.
I remember, I think we spoke about it, but I think Jimmy Carr was on the week before me.
He did the opening, he opened it up, didn't he?
Yeah, a week before. He done 3 45s in one night.
So his probably first show at 7 o'clock was probably empty, like we all had an empty show at 7.
Sporadic, wasn't it? Sort of spaced out on that one. They'll be even more quieter now if you go back on.
If the Oceana's going, they're going to get rid of that's the second oldest ship they got, so I don't know. I don't know what the oldest one is at the moment.
Arcadia? Is that Arcadia, or was that a new one? New version?
The new Arcadia, yeah, the old one. I loved the old Arcadia back 20 years ago, yeah.
Do you remember the new Titanic? Or have they not got that yet? not the old one. Not the old one. You went down well on it.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to say that because that's obvious, but
yeah.
I made a list of the ships that me and Leslie have done in 9 years, and then I added the sums ones that I've done, and it's a hell of a list. I can't believe it. I love the Oceana.
I know. Well, there's a lot of cruise acts that work on cruises sat at home going, I wish I was on a cruise. Whereas when you're on a cruise, you're saying, I wish I was at home. You know, so where does it stop? Where does it start?
We're doing too much. I want to get home and play some golf, but no, I can't wait to get back.
I know, yeah. You create memories on ships, and you had one of your heroes on the ships, didn't you? Norman Wisdom?
Norman Wisdom, he was I've always been able to do, when I was born, I came out doing Norman Wisdom.
Well, you tripped up.
Little thing we can do, and when I went on to that stage in 78 with my cousin at Pontins, for the first ever time, I did Wisdom, and it just comes natural. And then 2005, which is 15 years ago now, I can't believe it. He was on Fred Olsen Braemar for 2 cruises in January of that year. And I came on the second cruise, and he was standing there at Barbados Turning Day. My hero. I watched all these black and white films back in the day when I was a wee nipper. And there he is, and I introduced myself, and he sort of done his little laugh. But my first show, 4 nights later, he's in the front row. Every night he sat there with his friend called Patrick from Newcastle.
Wow.
He was his prompt, and I'm never about to close the first show that I do. I always do that for some reason, because everybody loves wisdom. I'm doing him now, and he's sat in front of me, and I can't tell you, it was such a surreal moment. And afterwards, he came backstage, and he said, "You do me, better not do myself." Isn't it? And that was just a surreal moment. Oceana, I've worked with some great acts on there, but I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, I've done the show in the Starlight Room, and some people are queuing up for my DVD then, when I was before the book, and in the queue is Professor Stephen Hawking with his 5 carers, nurses, and I thought, I didn't even know he was on the ship. He's going to Tenerife to do some astrophysics conference, and there he is, Professor, talking to me in his own inimitable way, buying a DVD, and I thought, oh my God, I didn't know he was on, so that was quite a surreal moment as well.
Well, and did you do impressions of Stephen Hawking in front of him, like you did Norman?
No, I don't. I think my wife would have gone mental if I did that.
Yeah.
Because when I worked with Shane...
Is that because you can't do the American accent too well, or so was that?
What a man, though. Actually, I think just the following month, the film came out with Eddie Redmayne.
Brilliant, isn't it? Brilliant. Wow.
So I've had loads of surreal moments, and I always say to myself, if my mum could see me now, because I never thought I would be mixed in the business anyway. So.
And now you've got a book. You could talk about the book. You can do your comedy lectures. That'll be exciting.
I love doing it, because I mean, daytime comedy, you can get away with more, and they're awake.
Yeah. Well, some of them.
Oh, mate.
Micky Zany, is that your real name?
No, it's Brenda.
I thought I'd set you up.
I do that most nights, and it still gets a titter.
Does it? Brenda's titters, or a bit of Frankie Howard there as well, like that.
Frankie, yeah, do a bit of him sometimes.
Oh.
Yeah, listen.
Yeah, how are you, Micky? How's things? Tell us about you.
Well, the last 15 weeks, for anybody else in this business, it's difficult for anyone that's not working who wants to work. I mean, I love what I do, and I'm missing it tremendously. I've never been out of work for more than, I don't know, a couple of weeks.
No, 4 months is crazy, isn't it? To not do comedy on stage.
There's millions of people that are struggling as well, don't get me wrong, but what I keep doing is I keep rewriting, and I keep looking at things and adding things. So in that sense, I'm producing more material, hopefully, and writing projects, because I just, as you know, I love comedy, all sorts of comedy. Funny.
I mean, comedy is in your blood, isn't it? Because we've had to stop. I think comedians that are just doing it for the money, I think they will just stop for 4 months and they won't be doing anything. But people like yourself, you'll sit down, you'll write a book on comedy, you'll write lectures, and you'll write more jokes because you're passionate, but you need to be out there doing it. But because you can't, you'll fill your life in other ways with comedy, and that's what, it's a passion, isn't it?
Absolutely, mate. I mean, to me, my first question I get asked on the ship is, were you born funny? And they laugh at that question, but I think you are. I never had any idea, living down here in silly Suffolk, miles away from the main entertainment places in the country, that I could ever be a pro comic, and not until in my 20s. But It's a gift, and I've kept the receipt.
Well, you can throw that away. I don't think you're ever going to need the receipt, but I think you are natural. You have got funny bones as well. You know, because you got a funny. You haven't got a funny face. You've got a great comedy. You've got a great comedy visual face. You do use your face a lot in your work, don't you?
I do. I like my whole body. I've always been. I don't know what. It's not planned. I see people, and that's the way they are. Lee Evans is the way he is on stage. He doesn't know where he's going to go. It's a natural thing for him on stage, and it's the same for me and a lot of other people. Yeah.
In your early days, you had a double act, and you did a double act in Jersey. Is that when you're doing seasons out in Jersey, the comedy shows? And
I did when I first went onto a stage, Stevie. Late 70s at a Pontins holiday camp up this way near Lowestoft. My cousin Steve, who is a good singer and still is, he was the instigation, the catalyst. Let's go on stage and do the talent show.
Really?
At Pontins, and them days, the late 70s, and holiday camps were the forte. They had backing bands and everything. It was fantastic. There wasn't no cruises then and going to Spain and Disney World, but he got me on stage and we did 8 minutes and 12 acts. We came joint first and the seed was sown and,
Wow.
nerve-wracking. But then I did a double act in the early 80s with our lovely friend and my great mate, Micky. We did that for several years and took that to Jersey. Yeah, we did.
It's a summer season.
It's 86. I turned pro in 80 to do Jersey for 6 months, 14 shows a week, 2 a night, and it was a travelling show, and I loved every minute. And then I didn't go back to Jersey to work until late 85 with Mick Miller at the Sunshine. Mick Miller, one of my favourite comics. Funny.
Oh, he's great.
Shane and I went to Jersey for 6 weeks at the Chateau with the Young Brothers and Max, and it was then he left to go to Bournemouth. So we had 4 or 5 years doing a little double and our own shows as well, of course.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
When me and Shane did the double act, we took the show to the Falklands with CSC Combined Services.
Wow.
And I put a whole chapter in the book that I've got the photographs in the room.
It's a brilliant book. A brilliant book full of stories. Great stories, Micky.
It's about stories. There's loads of gags in the book and moments. But it is about a working class lad from here, Suffolk, who almost famous. I had no ideas of fame, as we mentioned before. But there's 2 weeks with the other acts. We had a dancers backing band, and we had technics, and we had fantastic 4 shows and we had Port Stanley, the Floating Harbour. We did 2 shows in there. Then we went to the Ascension Islands. Oh, it was wonderful.
Brilliant. Have you had any other jobs?
My first job, I was a journalist. Not a journalist, I was a paper boy. Sorry, a paper boy. And most men you talk to in the audience, have all had a paper round. Not so much now.
Yeah, I did. It was my first job for 2 years.
And it was my first job because we got
I was
paid
24.
For it to be a job. And I only had to do 2 road slips, which is the H5 and the A45. But I used to work in the post office when I was very young, and at that time they used to play background music in the post office, Steve. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And when the music stopped, I used to undo a parcel. So I didn't last very long there. I had loads of jobs. I worked in a nursery when I was just left school. When I say nursery, not kids, I mean flowers and shrubs and that. Yeah. And we used to grow bonsai trees. Do you remember them? Do you know what bonsai trees are?
I do. I remember Karate Kid. Yeah, that's how I found out about them.
We were so successful, we had to move to smaller premises. I had loads of stuff. The comedy is about it. Comedy is in the moment. It's in the moment, comedy. I always say that. It's here and now. Not tomorrow. It's now. If you don't laugh now, then forget it. Don't worry about it.
We better leave it there then. Oh, that was brilliant.
I don't know what you're doing in lockdown, but I'm trying to write stuff like you are. I've took up meditation, Steve, and it's spend all day doing nothing in it.
That's nice. You write some great lines, Micky. They are in the moment.
People do tell me stuff as well, and you change it around a bit. And I've been helping out filling the bags in Tesco's. The police called it shoplifting. I rang up when they started to go back open the shops. I rang up B&Q and I said to the bloke, "How big is the Q?" He said, "The same as the B." I got locked in a coffee bar the other week, and now I'm claustrophobic. I do that, and it never gets a laugh. I'm going to keep doing it because
it works.
Claustrophobic, don't you? I'm very claustrophobic. And I went into a girl once, and she was agoraphobic, and we spent most of our time in doorways. We could gag forever, we could do impressions forever, but
you can do, can't you? I mean, did you write every day, Micky? You still write every day?
I'm not one of those who sit down and say, "Right, I'm going to write something today."
No.
We just get ideas. You look at the papers. You play golf with someone. They mention something. You go.
It just comes to you, and you write it down. Yeah. And
then after a week or two, you've got some notes on a bit of paper, and you open your pad, put them in there. I want gags for everything. I mean, people might think, well, you don't need to, but no, it's just nice that you can.
It's good to have something. See, if you're talking to someone in the audience, and that triggers something in your mind, and then you've got the next 5 minutes is covered and it's an ad lib basically, isn't it? And I've watched you so many times when you've veered off of your act, if you've got an act, because you don't. Your shows, because your shows are never the same, are they? Yeah, they're never the same.
You're absolutely right, Steve. But when I'm on stage, I have a plan A, B, and C. But I never have done the same thing twice. I'm not trying to brag about having loads of material. Is not always the answer, but.
No, but that's why I love watching you, because it was on the cruise ships where you used to do 2 shows in one night, and I would watch both of your shows because I knew I was going to get an hour and a half of material to enjoy, not just 45 minutes. So I always watched you because it was different and it was brilliant, you know. And sometimes when you do a gag that went down so well more than one, but it goes down so well in the first show. I'm waiting to hear it again in the second show because it was so funny. And it's like a song, isn't it? It's like listen to Celine Dion do a song, and you want her to do that in her acts because she's known for that. But you've got certain routines as well that you do, you keep in the act. But then because you ad lib so much, you just don't know what's coming with Micky Zany because it's.
Isn't that what
it's brilliant?
All about, not knowing what's coming. I mean,
unpredictable.
Many times when I go, nearly every cruise I do, every show, someone is going to come in late. Someone's going to say something. They're going to walk right in front of you, and the best comedy is something that's unplanned anyway. The things that people do and say walking around the ship is funny. So you put it in there, and they laugh at themselves because they know they do that, and they say and do funny things. And I've built on that and got loads of stuff. People come out of the lift, old people, when they lose their memory, they go, "Is this us?" When they come out of the lift on the floor, they just say stupid
Oh, yeah. It's silly, isn't it?
And also, you're getting back to the accents and that. They love, if you're talking to, if it's someone from Newcastle in, I will say something like, remember the old police series from the 70s, YA favour? You've got these little lines you've had for years and you keep building and people...
It just comes back to you when you're on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't want to have a plan. If you've got the same script day after day after day, you've got to... I keep changing it, even the second show to the first, because it keeps me fresh.
Yeah, it challenges yourself. Yeah, no, of course. Was it you? It may have been Dave Evans. I'm trying to remember who it was. It may have... Yeah, we missed Dave. And he was on stage, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this man walked past, and I think it was actually Dave that told me this. This man walked past him, and he had these huge sideburns and a bit of a quiff. Yeah, and he walked past him, and it was really rude because he walked past the dance floor where Dave was working, and Dave just stopped in the moment during his act, and he waited for the man to go past, and the audience start tittering. Do you know when an act stops and you know that they're looking at that person walking across the stage? So he bypasses him, he walks to the back of the room really slowly, and I think this may have been a Cunard or a Saga. So this guy's walking, quite slow and old, and he gets to the back of the room, opens the door, and just walks out. And the whole audience, the audience are like waiting for Dave's line, and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has left the building." And that was. Have you heard that before? That one?
I have heard that in a different concept, but Dave Evans told jokes, did impressions, played, sang. He was the ultimate variety performer, wasn't he?
He was brilliant.
He was king on the ships. There's some, as we said, there's some great acts on ships, loads and lots. And it's like that. I mentioned the history of comedy that I started 2 years ago because I've got time on my hands. I love comedy, and from 1860, Mary Lloyd and Dan Leno and Harry Lauder.
So these are talks that you're writing, Micky, about some particular acts from that era, or
when you say talks, I didn't write a book to sell it and talk about it all these years ago, but this is something I was interested in, and then with lockdown, I've really tightened it up, and I might do PowerPoint with pictures, and one day, you're quite right, they do want daytime comedy, especially on sea days, is something that's going to be big time soon on the ship. So I've got now, if you want to talk about from 1860 to 2020, you've got so much to talk about, and there's many people love comedy. They want to hear the background, and it's not just going on stage and telling some jokes, making people laugh. It's a life for most people.
They've all got a backstory, haven't they? And they've got how did they start in that business?
We go from the George Formby's and the Hilda Bakers back in the day, right up to the present day. I mean, I've got 72 comics here from 1860 to 1948. Before 1950, they were born. The last one here is Jethro, born in 48.
Wow, brilliant! They're all in your book.
And everybody knows them, I mean, when you're talking to an audience who are in their 70s now and their 80s, obviously, they will know all these. A younger audience, you'll do stuff about the last 20-odd years with the comics today, obviously.
Yeah, but you're thinking about the younger generation. Is it nice to actually teach them about those people of the past they didn't know about? So it's actually...
I mean, there's people in your young people, you know, they want to see the background. I mean, today it's a different format, but I feel sorry sometimes because in them days, in the 70s and 80s, you could go to holiday camp and a social club, and you'd be on television. You got, you know, we said it, didn't we, about pubs and clubs and theatre. You were supporting people in them days.
Yeah.
And we did corporate stuff, and we did summer seasons and nightclubs. You know, there was so much to do, but now you go into a comedy store or a pub now, and with 10 minutes of your own material, and hopefully get seen and then get managed, and you're on Live from the Apollo or Mock the Week, blah, 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 you know.
Yeah, it's all different. Edinburgh Festival, that's where they go for comedy now.
I mean, when I was there, we went 4 years ago. I was going to go this year. I mean, we saw Milton Jones, funny. Stuart Francis, Canadian, funny. Harold Cruttenden. Some people are not well known, but Harold Cruttenden, funny man.
I love Hal.
Jack D, like Mick Miller, very sarcastic. Self-deprecating humour, that's what I thrive on, is that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Have you seen James Acaster? He's one of my favourites.
I only seen him on Mock the Week, but I must watch his thing, yeah.
He's got something on Netflix. You have to watch it. He's brilliant. Really great mind.
He's got this natural way, hasn't he? He's very...
Yes.
Some people have got their own little idiosyncrasies.
Yeah, that is a good word.
What a good word that is.
I tried to do that without moving my lips. That's a difficult
one. Scrabble,
Eyes and teeth. It's a great, not training ground, because you're a professional doing the shows. But I suppose Pakefield up in Lowestoft was your training ground. So you kind of learned, didn't you, by doing the summer seasons? It gets you ready for doing the cruise ships, which came later on.
It did for me, because I wasn't a bluey or a red coat or in a band. I went straight into stand-up.
Yeah.
I did a talent show near Ipswich in a little village. It was a New Faces type thing, 78 year. And my mates pushed me up, and I used to collect gags as a teenager, Steve. I used to collect. I've still got the gag book. I used to get a magazine every week, and I'd write gags then I liked and sketches. And I got up there, and it was all quite working class and saucy in them days. And I got to the final and came third in the final with no act. So that's when I became semi-pro for 18 months, and then got Jersey for 1980 with the travelling show. So the 80s, Steve, everything happened in the 80s.
Everything was on TV then. All the variety shows were still on. The comedians were on again, I think, for their second series, weren't they? And
82, yeah. I was just going to say, I can remember the first lot, unfortunately, but I can remember all of them, and then 82. But, I mean, everything we did cabaret was the word. I mean, cabaret is not a word you hear now, do you? Very much cabaret.
No, it's more comedy clubs, isn't it?
Well, I've done doing comedy stores in the last 3 years. I like that side of the business as well. Younger people and having a different style as well. Clubs, restaurants, nightclubs. We had nightclubs there. You could do a week in each nightclub, and the whole year you'd be in a different club. Do you know what I mean?
Wow. It's completely different now, isn't it? It's changed. I mean, not because of the virus. It was the last 5-10 years have been difficult, really, for venues and that, because they're closing down or whatever.
I mean, I can remember doing adult weekends at Butlins with big names back in the day, with Manning and Tim Davison and Mike Reed and Jimmy Jones, and supporting them. And in them days, and clubs, you had to be strong. And for me, because of the name, I used a lot of props. I was very visual comedy as well as stand-up, vocal comedy. Taking the Mickey out of Jagger and Tom Jones and God knows what. So for me, there was hostile environment, head nights, stag nights, junior rank soldiers. You had to be strong in them days. Otherwise, you just die on your backside. You
struggle, yeah, definitely. I mean, there was even Lee Evans back then had a little difficult one. You were working one night with Lee, weren't you? And what was that? You got a little story about that?
About this story?
I do, yeah.
84, we were at a theatre, Riverside in Woodbridge, New Ipswich. It's an ITV telethon. And when I spoke to Lee a year ago at his dad's funeral, it was a very sad day, he remembered. I said, and he remembered it word for word. He was messing about on stage. He wasn't known then, obviously, in '84, and he was doing his visual, but fell over. But the mic stand was a pump action, fell on his face. There was blood everywhere. And everybody thought that was part of the act.
Wow.
And I said to him afterwards, you want to keep that in? It's really funny, being a bit cheeky. And last year he remembered that moment, and he put that in a book that you lent me, a book called Ha Bloody Ha, and all these modern day. And that is in this book that has been written 10 years ago, I think. So, yeah, funny man.
Yeah, I noticed that. It's a brilliant story. Eyes and teeth. Mick, what does comedy actually mean to you? I mean, I know it's your life, isn't it? I mean, it's taken you around the world. It's it's got your house.
I'm not.
It's.
I don't use the word obsession because I'm not, you've still got a private life as well, and I do, leave that. When I'm at home, I don't do much work on the act as such. When I'm on the ships, and you spend a lot of time, what we call killing time on ships, don't we?
Yeah.
If you're on for a week and you do 2 nights work, which is, you build up for that, you work on that. So I've spent millions of hours rewriting and revamping and writing stuff. I love it. You're right, I was born into it. When I was a teenager, I went and saw them live at 16, 17. When I first saw live comedy, I was in awe. I thought, what a gift to have these people laughing in the palm of your hand.
Yeah, wow.
And you know what it's like. When there's nothing better to be in a theatre with 1,000 people and they're crying with laughter. It's hard to explain to someone, and it's just, that's why we do it. People say, why do you do it? It's the toughest game there is, but the rewards, you either do it, you either love it or you don't. If you don't feel funny or whatever, don't do it. That's what I say.
Well, if you don't feel funny, get off. I mean, it really is. It really is a passion in it. I think it drives you when you get the applause and the laughter.
It's a craft. You're absolutely right. It's a passion.
Yeah, I think that's what's the hardest thing.
It's a roller coaster, Steve. You take
it
them
is.
on a journey.
Yeah.
And people laugh at you. If they're laughing at you, it's like Tommy Cooper, No One Wisdom, and blah blah blah. You're laughing at the person. What they're saying, it becomes a bonus almost, doesn't it? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, it does become obsessive, really, because we're sat at home now for 4 or 5 months, and we want to get out there because we want to feel that laughter. I've done so much stuff online, you can't hear any feedback out there, and people they write ha ha or they send you a laughing emoji. It's just not the same, is it, mate? You kind of need that feedback to feed not our egos, but just because it's our life, really.
But with you, I mean, watching you as a top venter, you're working the Arthur Lager. You got to work a certain way. You've got to caress an audience. You can't please everybody. You know what it's like on ships nowadays. You go on Cunard like I did last year, and there's 34 different nationalities on there.
Yeah.
So a lot of them won't come in because they won't understand English. But those that do, the Americans and the Japanese and the Russians and the Eastern Europeans and the Irish guys, you've got to be able to cope with them and have enough material and keep it clean and not offend anybody nowadays. Look what's going on at the moment, But there's nothing wrong with not offending people. I mean, when I was a kid, I remember having a cassette of Max Miller and Bobby Thompson, the Little Wester.
Wow.
And he had this routine, Hitler in the fish shop up in the northeast, and it was funny.
Yeah.
It was funny, and he was a rich man, but he was called the Little Waster. And before I turned pro, a fellow called Billy Dainty came to Ipswich to do a box.
Oh yes, yeah.
And he was a visual comic. I remember Max Wall and Wisdom and Cooper because. So they were visual comics. You don't see many visual comics nowadays, do you? That characters as such.
No, you don't. I mean, Joe Pasquale is one of those. But yeah, I mean, say Joe, and then there's not much more really. Tim Fine, who's a punster, a gagster. He started to use a lot more props now. Tim has, and he stick a little vent dummy in the act, But yeah, there aren't many prop comedians out there. I mean, it's a very.
Props, no, I mean my act was full of props back in the day. I do loads of silly stuff. I bring them back in the act now, especially with the daytime chat. You can bring in stuff you used to do. I mean, back when I started in the early 80s, we had people like Frank Spencer, didn't we? Wurzel Gummidge.
Yeah.
The ones with Cliff Richard. I mean, I used to do Quasimodo for a few years, and my lovely mate Lee Carroll, who wrote for me back in the day and still does, he wrote some lovely parodies with Quasimodo,
Yeah, that's nice. It's a great routine, that. It's brilliant. Very good.
And I love that. And, we had a lovely Prince Charles and Diana routine, me and Shane.
Yeah, you do a good Prince Charles, didn't you?
I still do. I do Tom Jones. I do Prince Charles singing Kiss.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I do Joe Pasquale doing Sex Bomb, and so I'm always inventing, because I love doing vocal comedy as well. I'm not a great singer by any stretch of the imagination. I remember Bob Monkhouse, loved him.
Yeah, a comedian's comedian, which I did actually tell Mick Miller he's a comedian's comedian, and you really make the hat trick. You are a comedian's comedian, because I've spoke to so many comics, and we done a Zoom just the other day. There was 9 comedians there, and we were all looking up to you, not because you was on top of the Zoom boxes, but you really have inspired loads of comedians my age and even your age.
I want to go on. I want to follow people like
on Twitter.
Tim Twitter. No, I'd like to follow people, not on Twitter, that have tore the place apart. I would like to go on there when the audience are up there, and that's when you want to go on. The feel of that theatre buzzing there on the ship, waiting to go on. It's just, you can't explain it, can you? Sometimes.
That's nice, because some comedians would say, I can't follow that. I won't go on and follow that, but you want to, and you go on there and you ride on the laughter. You ride.
I always remind the audiences. Back in the day, it's 50 years ago now, Freddie Starr walked onto the Royal Variety Performance in 1970,
really?
Stephen,
wow.
and tore the place apart. And 50 years ago, funny man with his visual and vocal impressions and comedy. Billy Connolly, the best. Doddy, the best. They're all different in their own right, but that lovely programme on Doddy the other night, I mean, you can watch
beautiful, wasn't it?
And I worked 3 times with Doddy and lots of people. I mean, Dave Allen. Dave, we could go on forever.
Yeah, Dave was... Let's go on. Let's keep going on. This names...
Les Dawson, Eric Morecambe, there's hundreds. Now, today you've got dozens of great comics who are well-known and top men, and you've got others that are not so well-known.
Yeah. You could tell that you've got a passion for it.
Men around today.
I know.
These are the older people who don't go to comedy stores, who don't go to live theatre and see live comedy. So then you watch the telly and they switch off.
Oh, controversial.
You mentioned the places that you work. You do cruise ships, golf clubs and stuff. How different would you say is it working a club at home to working on a cruise ship, or a comedy club to a corporate gig? Are audiences different, or is funny just funny?
They're all different. I mean, corporate's not so... You don't get much corporate nowadays. I do my golf club, which you've done it 2 or 3 times. We're just here in Ipswich, my golf club. Twice a year I put a little show on, and you've done that a couple of times. They're mainly an old... You've got to be careful. They're not old. They're just a more senior audience.
Yeah.
So when you go on a cruise ship now, some of the adult-only ones, 90%, the average age will be in the 60s, maybe in the 70s. So your approach to comedy now is that you've got to be more mainstream. Whereas you go to a comedy store. I did the Manchester Comedy Store a few years ago. It's my wife Leslie, from Manchester.
Yeah.
So I did an open night there once, and it was all young, and I loved it. And I've done Up the Creek and loads of comedy stores, because it's just nice to get out and do 15 minutes and try some new stuff out with a much younger audience. It's just a different walk for me, but
yeah.
A cruising audience to me is not because they're on a ship and you can use ship material, that is, and or golf club or Warner's Holiday. We do Warner's Holiday Leisure Hotels, which are great, and then you might do something else with this younger people there. I don't know, but to me, an audience is an audience, and you've got to have enough. You've got to have the right material for the right audience, Steve.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was at the Magic Convention in Blackpool, 3,000 magicians, and you see magicians performing for magicians. And I've worked at the Ventriloquist Convention in Kentucky. It kind of turns your stomach, but you remember this Comedians Golfing Society, and do you like performing in front of comedians?
Yeah.
You don't mind that?
It.
Yeah.
I love it. I don't do so much with them now because there's not many actual comedians that go to the games now.
No.
But I'm keeping contact with Dave Brock, Triple Cream, and Johnny Clark. And I see Jeff now and again, Jeff Stevenson.
Yeah.
But there's not so many stand-ups that belong to the CGS. But I try and go whenever there's a charity going on,
Okay, yeah.
I love working in front of pros and that. I love it.
Back in the day, when like the 70s and 80s, Brucey would be with like Ronnie Corbett and DeCourcy and all of these good comedy names that are around hosting TV shows, Lenny Bennett, all of those names would be playing golf. It was massive. Even down here in Eastbourne, my wife Nina talked about, she remembers when all those comedians were here and her dad used to take them to the golf course. And it was big. I mean, golf and comedy does go together, didn't it? Did you make a lot of deals? Did you make a lot of deals on the golf course, like getting gigs with agents and... Is it a good?
I don't do many golf days now. You say that. I used to do quite a lot, but the corporate scene is that's suffered in the last few
Died
years.
down. Yeah, it has died down.
I mean, I love my golf. Don't get me wrong, and I've got a golf routine that lasts half an hour.
Is that because you're stuck in the bunker? Why does it take so long to do that routine?
I don't know. I was playing with my old mate the other day, and he said, I can't get out of this bunker. I said, well, just get behind the ball, take plenty of sand, and get it. You know, it's not that he said, I can't get out of the bunker. No, golf is great, but no, they don't say. I think today it's cruising has taken over today. All of a sudden, we've taken everything for granted. All these ships we do, and
I know, you expect cruising to always be there.
We moan about being away too much and the wives and that.
We're not now.
No,
No.
we're all saying and
Yeah.
I just hope that we don't lose too many ships along the way now.
Sad, isn't it? It's very, very weird situation that we're in. But well, I mean,
I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if we'll be cruising before this year is out. I touch wood, I hope so. But it's all about the vaccine. It's all about distancing and God knows what, Steve.
yeah, you can't do that on ships. You can't play golf on ships either. So enjoy that while you got it.
You'd have a bit of a job, wouldn't you? But,
Yeah, you're talking about golf clubs. I done one last year with Bob Webb. It was
funny man.
yeah, but it was brilliant, and he was like doing the setup before me. But I got to the gig, it was just not a ventriloquist's venue. Do you know what I mean? For a stand up, you can set up and just go on a mic and do an after dinner speak, and then.
Yeah.
But I had to set up my props, as you know. I need to be up against the wall. I need to. So I placed myself. Jimmy Townley taught me all this, how to work a room properly, and then I went up against the wall and I worked the room the best I could. But I looked at that audience, probably about 100 men, and one woman who was actually organised the whole thing. I thought, this puppet show's going to die in its arse, right? So, but what I did do, and I've got this from watching you doing the golf club, and I just mentioned golf at the beginning of my act, and I won them over for half hour. So the line that I did, it was like watching all the, you know, when you have to go on after a raffle or an auction, or on this occasion it was an awards show, and I'm glad they done the awards before I came on. The last award that they did was the longest drive. I was introduced by Bob Webb straight after that, and I went out and I went, great to be here this evening. Thanks so much. I was really getting excited when they mentioned the award for the longest drive, because I've come all the way from Eastbourne and we were in Manchester. I mean, it's an obvious joke, but it got a really big laugh, and I got those guys on my side. And I struggle in golf clubs, but the last couple of years, I've actually watched people like yourself try and get them on your side. And if you can get them laughing from the off, then you're going to do all right, ain't you? If I just
do lots of golf clubs, then I assume you
I don't, mate. No,
do I.
the most I've done is with you. But I've done quite a few in Eastbourne, which is my hometown. And it's just when they have dinners at Christmas, you know. But out of town, I've only worked with Bob Webb and you.
It's not many, is it? I mean, if I do a golf club, my golf club, and it's mixed audience, I won't be doing any golf material, although I'll be taking the Micky out of one or two local people, whoever
That you know,
But
yeah.
It's only when you're doing a men's golf and dinner, then you'll do some golf stuff. But it varies all the while. I mean, things have changed so much since over the years. You know, comedy is changing, Stevie.
I mean, you've done a show a few years ago, and I don't know if you still do this, but you've done a triple act with Andy Leach and Leo Shavers, the Village Idiots. Yeah. How important is it to you to work with mates? Because me and you done this brilliant cruise in 2002, and we 12 weeks on a ship?
Oh, 12 weeks.
What an amazing summer we had. But
and that's it, we become great friends. We did 3 Baltics and 3 Norways.
Yeah.
One after the other, and we had lovely Robley with us, lovely Andrew with us.
Yeah, my Nina was on. I mean, it's a time I'll never forget, but one of the best summers I've ever had. A defining moment, really, for me, because I sat and watched you and just got to know you as a comedian, and every show you did was different. Because
I love working these ships, because especially, not so much now, but back in the day, we used to. If you do Fred Olsen there, you do the whole cruise basically, because the ships are much smaller. With P&O now, Cunard, you'll probably just do half the cruise now, because this big ships are bigger. They need more acts, more people. So I miss the camaraderie when you're on a ship with other acts that you know, and it's more of a social. You enjoy it much more with other people, and I love watching everybody work. We watch all the shows with me and my wife go on cruises now. We watch all the action, all the shows, because I love all entertainment. We've seen so many. We've been and seen Billy Joel and David Essex, Catherine Jenkins, Des O'Connor, Tom Jones. Bette Midler.
Wow.
You see all these. I love watching live entertainment, plays and music. She took me to see Don Giovanni at Glyndebourne a couple of years ago.
Isn't that a perfume?
Well, I wish it was. I wish it was. It would have took 3 hours to put that on you, would it? But we saw Shania Twain last year.
Okay, wow. That don't impress me that much.
Don't impress me that much. Janie McDonald was supposed to be at NID this August coming, but she's pulled out for obvious reasons. It's got to be closed.
Yeah.
And I watch other people because I just love watching comedy and talented people, Steve,
Yeah.
So what we're going to be doing for the next 6 months, I don't know. Unless you're doing your podcasts and my key writing, I've got some stuff here. Look, I've got 70 comedy acts, born before 1950. Just great. It was all Northern comedy back in the day, Steve. Back in the day.
It was, mate. It was. Accents were important. Yeah, accents are funny, aren't they? Accents are really funny. Yeah. I think your Suffolk accent is brilliant. It really.
Suffolk accent. You mean because people always want to go to the Norfolk accent, don't they? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you have to be careful because Norfolk people don't tend to take offence so much. You do a Geordie or Liverpool, Birmingham. You have to have the right material. You don't want to start taking too many liberties with people with their accent. They don't get a bit upset, some people, don't they?
Do they? Yeah, I suppose. What about the American audience? And we worked together on a Royal Caribbean ship, and the Americans love what you did. So you can cater for them as well, yeah? Not sausage rolls wise, but you're brilliant in...
Americans, I mean, it's all, most of what I do, and I want to do it, is observational stuff about the ship, about flying, about kids, about getting older, about, losing your memory a bit. I said to my doctor, I'm losing my memory. He said, forget it, don't worry about it. And you just write lines.
Yeah.
You don't say certain things that will upset anybody because we're all going to get older, hopefully, and we're all going to forgetful, and then kids and accents, and then you talk about going to the doctor. When you get, as Billy Connolly once said, when you get beyond 50, the bottom half starts to go then, and it's to the doctors we go, and then you get stuff that is quite funny when you can talk about it to an audience that has done it.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's all about all sorts of courses, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And you've been there. You've been around the world and back. Would you say that travelling, you said travelling where you've written most of your material on the road from your surroundings? Your material's so topical, isn't it, and up to date, like you say?
I mean, my wife's quite, she's very good at giving me lines. I mean, we'll hear something, you'll see something, say something silly. I said, it's funny that, and you've got to write it down and keep writing things down. We've written a couple of things down yesterday, and then you add them to your routines, all of a sudden you've got bigger and better routines.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's like sometimes you go to an audience and they're a bit older, a bit whatever, and they want the gag, so you try and find some nice gags for them. That's what they like, a nice bit of fillet steak. That's what they like.
Yeah. It is a 3-course meal, isn't it? A comedy routine, so you have to...
Exactly, absolutely right, and you try... I think what I tell the audience when I'm talking daytime chat is they've got to feel after the first few minutes, we can relax now. We haven't got to worry about it. He's not going to be insulting. He's not going to be cutting. He's not going to take them. Do you know what I mean?
They get to know you. Yeah.
They get to know you on the ship, and this is it. And then you've got to do another show. Then you've got to do a third show. So if you don't do the business on the first one, God help you.
Well, you're spending 2 weeks in a cabin and hiding from everybody. So there's well, I'm just talking about myself.
I've never had that misfortune. I've had some...
No, not yourself. But I've heard it's happened.
Over my career, I've had some thousands of loads, and we've all had difficult nights. We've all had loads of terrible nights, and I once did an animal rights barbecue. Not easy. And I've had loads of tough gigs, but back in the day, if you never died on your backside, you ain't lived, because you learn from the bad one. You don't learn from the great ones, do you? But
no,
when
definitely.
I talk to the audience on the ship, I tell them about some of the tough ones, and there's been some tough ones, of course there is. But there you go.
Yeah, well, I've never seen you have a tough one.
Okay, not so much now, because you know what to do now. You wouldn't take. I can always remember back in the early 2000s at Hemsby Pontins. Did you ever do that?
Yeah. I've struggled in many places.
And it was boys football weekend.
No.
Under 12s.
Wow.
And I go on there, I just walk on with my case, and some little boy about 12 years old said something rather obscene, and I said, "Oh, I'm in the wrong place. Good night, see you later." Picked my case up and walked out. I hadn't done nothing yet. And the next day, Robbie Lee Clark, who was the booker for Pontins then,
Yeah.
he rang up and apologised, and the manager apologised. I said, "What you put me in an under-12s football weekend for?" Weird and wonderful. You still got the money, Stephen. That's the main thing.
Yeah. Gig's a gig, innit? So,
It's a gig. We've all had our jobs. I mean, I don't know about you. Did you go straight into venting from school? Because I certainly didn't go straight into stand-up. I did a little bit of...
yeah, I went into holiday parks. I went down at Barry Island in Wales when I was 17.
Oh,
yeah, and
I
then...
did that.
Did you? Yeah, I was...
Barry Island...
Blimey.
Was it Butlins?
It used to be, yeah. Not when I was there.
I did it as Butlins. That's early 80s.
Yes. Wow.
And I'll tell you who was on the same night. The fantastic Joe Longthorpe.
Brilliant. What an act.
I toured with Joe, and I cruised with Joe, and so sad, obviously, but he, an act you want to work with all the while. He was a fantastic audience.
You've done a lot of theatre support for different people. Is it easier for you supporting comedy names or music names? Is it easier or the same?
Back in the day, I keep saying back in the day, as if that's 100 years ago, back in the 80s, I was lucky because... turning pro in the early 80s was great because there was, I don't know, Watford Baileys. I would be with Manning and Davison, but there'd be the Drifters, Commodores, Dr. Hook, lots of top names, and you go on at 7:30, do your half an hour. And that was great learning curve for me to be working with these people and working some TVs in the 80s with Jim Davison's Wednesday at 8. That was a cracker, Victoria Palace. Barrymore.
I remember that, yeah. Wow.
BBC One, Barrymore. I mean, Barrymore back in that day was top. He was the top man.
It was.
And I was on there with Ken Dodd. But we had blazers at Windsor and Lakeside, Camberley, and Caesar's Palace in Luton, Newmarket, Talk of the Northern Eccles, Stardust in Leicester. We had the night out in Birmingham with the 3 degrees, and loads of... And then, of course, Cruising come along, and then you're rubbing shoulders with Catherine Jenkins on the Oriana. Then the next week you're with Des O'Connor on the Braemar, and then you're Michael Ball on the Aurora. We're rubbing shoulders with these top people.
You won't be now. It's 1 metre distance, isn't it? So
Absolutely.
you can't get near their shoulders.
1+.
2 metres.
So if you work in these theatres now, and when people go onto a cruise and put their formal suit on, they want something a little bit better than what they see then at their pub or social club, Stephen.
That's true, yeah. That's what formal night's for. Yeah.
You've got to match the other acts that are on with you. And I've worked with thousands of fantastic talent you never see on the television. And when a certain person said he started to run down and put down cruising acts, he had no idea. We know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He had no idea what he's on about. He put on some rubbish on that talent show, some brilliant stuff.
If only they knew what was on the show. I've seen that some of the best productions and comedians and singers at sea. But yeah, that's where all the great acts are, isn't it? All of them.
That's where they're going to. I mean, you know, working with people like, just Marty Webb, Darren Day, and all sorts of...
Mike Doyle.
Doyley, Lavini, Alan Stewart, some great acts, but I started on Saga Rose in 2003. That took a while for my agent, Nick, to get me on there, but I followed Max Bygraves on a worldie, and I was really Saga Rose. You know what Saga like?
Was that your first ship, Saga Rose, was it? No. The
first ship was Canberra on P&O.
Okay, yeah.
13. Saga Rose came in 2003 with Max Bygraves. Saga Ruby, I'm standing beside Neil Sedaka, and you're thinking... I know.
Wow.
And you'll think, God, my mum could see me now, and it's just, I'm just a lad from Suffolk boy, you know, who had no intention of becoming a pro comic, but always felt funny. I made my mates and people laugh when we went out when I was a teenager, and the way to get in a girl was they love a sense of humour, so I made them laugh, and that was the one way.
That all worked back then, did it? Did you done comedy impressions?
It was visual impressions, but more impersonations.
Yeah.
Is there a difference? I think there is.
Yeah, I think there is.
I'm not what I call a pure impressionist, but I'll take some. I do lots of impressions and voices, and also silly stuff as well.
Yeah.
So that just adds to the.
Who do you think is
Tom Jones? I ain't going to do Tom Jones. I'm going to do somebody else doing Tom Jones.
Yeah. Who is good to take off these days? Because I mean, the celebrities these days. I know you get the Alan Carrs and things, but celebrities are like Love Island. They're not really celebrities. They haven't really got an act or talent. So.
I've got a line about that. Did you know that The Only Way is Essex are going to amalgamate with Love Island. They're going to call it Love on Canvey Island. I was just thinking that today's celebrities are people that read the weather. They're people that do. There's a million celebrities out there because there's a million channels on the TV, Steve. But when you go to a charity who gets on the stage and does a bit? Me and you and a singer, because they can't do anything to entertain an audience, can they?
No.
But they're presenters. Good luck to them. They're presenters and love.
They could do the raffle.
They can do the raffle, and get more money than us. But no, it's who's to do? I don't look at today's. I don't do Boris and Donald Trump. No, I don't do them sort of impressions. I want visual people, you know.
If you could pick 3 comedy heroes, who would it be?
Oh, mate.
3 of your favourites.
Oh, mate, you know what?
I know there's a few.
Listen, Robin Williams in America.
Yeah.
I remember a person who passed away way back. His name was Bill Hicks.
Yeah, Bill was brilliant. I've got one of his books.
32 of the Big C, and he was revolutionary. There's a bloke today, I think he's Australian, Jim Jeffries.
Yeah, Jim's great, yeah.
Great, but these people are so revolutionary and so bang on. Our fathers and mothers wouldn't appreciate that. But Connolly, Billy Connolly, a lot of people do Billy Connolly, but, Doddy, Connolly, Lee Evans today, Peter Kay, that car share, we are rolling about and they're just sitting in the car talking to each other.
It's mad, isn't it? It's so simple.
It's so simple. Comedy is simple. Simple.
That's what people love.
To do your homework, fail to prepare to fail, and all that. Harry Hill, Jimmy Carr, Alan Carr, we saw Rob Brydon live in Ipswich year before last. Fantastic.
Rob Brydon, very funny.
He did an hour and 40. He didn't have a break. He came on and he closed with his Elvis routine.
Did he do his man in the box?
Man what?
Did he do his man in the box? You know where he does the...
No, he didn't. I wouldn't lie to you, but he didn't do that.
Okay.
Kevin Bridges, funny man. Kevin, I read his book, 18, straight from school into comedy stores. We saw Sarah Millican live, fantastic.
Yeah, what do you think of John Bishop? John Bishop,
yeah, the opportunity to be a comedian. He's got off the board, we haven't seen him for a while, have we? He talks with his mates. It'd be a good ventriloquist talk.
he would be.
Flanagan.
Yeah.
Flanagan.
No, Micky's great, yeah.
I mean, you said top 3.
Gotta go
Yeah, Flanagan's great.
Flanagan and Allen, they're good.
Listen, I don't know. You name your top 3 ventriloquists. You'd have a job, wouldn't you?
Ron Lucas, Jimmy Tamley, Keith Harris. There you go.
I worked with Ron Lucas on...
Did you?
Wednesday at 8, Jim Davis in 1988. That was one night.
That was the same one. Yeah, that's the first time I ever recorded a ventriloquist on TV. It was that show. You were on that. I did not know you was on that.
He was on that show. And he did something that hadn't been done before.
With a sock.
Whatever it was, I remember Richard Digest was on, Jim Compeder and Nolan's were on.
Wow, what a show. Brilliant.
And I had this spot I watched it on my own when I went to Jersey to Caesar's Palace in 88, and I watched it in a hotel and I was dreading what it was going to come out like. But it came out brilliant, and I was going to sign with this big agent in London, and I don't know what happened, but it fell through. So, but then again, I don't mind. I have no regrets about fame. And that fame is temporary, but talent is permanent.
It is, mate. You're a complete success at what you do, Micky. I love what you do. I love watching you. Every time we work together, you're a brilliant comedian. Great at what you do.
You got to do your homework, Steve.
I know, it's all experience, and you can tell you're experienced. And, first time I saw you, I heard about you probably for about 10 years before we met on the ship. So probably like early 90s, I heard Micky Zany, and I thought, I really can't wait to work with this Micky Zany. And then we met in Gibraltar. I remember we had a big man hug. And then, because we knew there was 12 weeks coming up, didn't we, that we were going to get to know each other, and it was brilliant. What a season.
I know, some lovely people, lovely friends. That's what it's all about.
Yeah,
people.
It is.
It's not about fame and that. I don't want it. I just love what I do, Steve. I just want to get back. Can't wait to get back.
I know.
Listen, when you watch Lee Evans or Peter Kay, they've done thousands of hours putting that act together. They spend a lot of time.
Yeah.
You don't, it doesn't just happen. Some people think, oh, is that all? Do you know what people say? I always say this on the ship. Half the audience go, is that all you do? 2 nights a week? Is that all you do?
Oh, wow, yeah.
And the other half go, how do you do that? How do you get on that stage and make us miserable people laugh?
Yeah, I prefer that half.
I prefer that half. But by the time you finish, and a lot of people say to me, I don't normally laugh at comedians. Oh, don't find them funny. I said, who do you normally laugh at then? That's because I think you'll find it's your fault because you're miserable. So get a life. Start laughing. I have a go at them sometimes, and if you go with them, don't go against them. If you go with people, they change their mind all of a sudden and say, oh, we think you're fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, you turn them to your way of thinking, and it's important.
Absolutely, but you've got to have grounding. I had a good upbringing. Mum and Dad loved entertainment while we were watching the black and white days. Don't worry about that. And I've got these things I've got written down. I can't wait to get out there and show an audience what we did in the past. We had some comedy doesn't always carry on. There's some comedy now you think, oh God, that's well dated.
Dated,
some
yeah.
Does. Some does, doesn't it?
Yes, some of it's still really funny now. I'm just trying to think of some, like the Stephen Wright, the comedian in America.
What happened to him?
He's still doing things over there, but he's so funny now. If you watch some Stephen Wright on YouTube, his lines work now. He's like Tim Vine, He's a gag. He's like Mick Miller, actually.
Yeah, but he was very, very dry, wasn't he?
It was, yeah, completely dry.
I mean, for me, wisdom, I was always, the first thing I ever did on stage back in that comedy talent show I did this talent show for Hemsby in 78 or 79, and you go to Blackpool, all the winners of all the camps every week, you go to Blackpool, and I went to Blackpool, and there was hundreds, like Britain's Got Talent auditions, hundreds of people,
Wow.
and I come third with no act, and Emlyn, I've got a black and white photograph of me and Emlyn Hughes. If you don't know football, you won't know Emlyn Hughes.
I don't know football, but I know Emlyn Hughes. I remember him.
A great Liverpool and England footballer.
Yeah.
And that was the start of it. I mean, if I'd have failed miserably on them early talent shows, really, locally, I don't know what would have happened, but I was sent, before I turned pro, I went to the northeast to South Shields Working Man's Club. It was the first gig I ever did.
Well, if you can survive there, Micky, then you survive anywhere.
I didn't survive.
Oh.
I just said, they're not laughing. He said, well, at least they're not having a go at you.
So for that night, you actually went well for that reason.
I went well, but see, them early years, going to the Midlands and the North East and Scotland, what we called net weeks, going to South Wales was lovely. You go away for weeks, and it was clubs, and you learned fast.
Yeah.
You had to learn fast. So you had to be your own man, have your own stuff.
Definitely.
You don't want to be doing somebody else's stuff. That wasn't the answer. So it's all experience, and long may it continue, Stephen.
Yeah, hopefully. Let's get back on our feet, back on the microphones. Micky, it's been brilliant, mate. Once again, thank you so much.
Steve, I love you. Stevie the Vent is so good. When he talks in his sleep, his lips don't move. Charlie Chaplin said, a day without laughter is a day wasted. Have a great day.
Well, let's keep laughing. What a nice
Keep laughing,
nice
mate.
thing
Great to
finish
talk
on,
to you,
isn't
Steve.
it? Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. And I will ask Nina about that line. Did she give that to you about talking in the sleep? Because I will ask her if I move my lips.
I don't know. I've never been there.
Thank you, Micky.
Take care, Steve. See you soon.
Cheers, buddy. I've really enjoyed this edition of Eyes and Teeth, so thank you, Micky Zany. You can see how we love and miss our jobs. It's not just a job to us, it's our life and passion, and hundreds of thousands of us performers are heartbroken and feel forgotten in 2020. It's now been about 8 months. There may be pantomimes and some Christmas shows out there this December. We just don't know what's around the corner, do we? But you can buy our DVDs and our books. That will help bring in some funds to your favourite performers. Check out all of their websites. So if you'd like to read Micky's biography, which I loved, check him out on mickeyzany.co.uk. Or you can find him as Micky Zany on Twitter. Actually, he could find himself on Twitter as well. He's not been on there since 2011.
Ooh, confidentiality.
Eyes and Teeth is written, produced and hosted by Steve Hewlett. Thanks to vocals from Nina, Lola and Larissa Hewlett and Rich T. Jingles and theme tune to Eyes and Teeth, all produced and performed by Kevin Dean. Today's quote comes from Sir Norman Wisdom. Such is life, and life is such, and after all it isn't much. First a cradle, then a hearse. It might have been better, but it could have been worse. Thank you, Norman. Tune in next time when I'll be talking to the wonderful opening act, comedian Mike Lancaster.